I'd like to call the meeting order. This is Rules and Open Government Committee meeting for November 20th, 2013. Unless we have a change to the order that we need to discuss, we'll just start with the first item, which is the fact there's no council meeting next week, so don't come.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Enjoy the time with your families. But we will be back on December 3rd, so let's take up that agenda. Anything to talk about on page 1?
Mayor, right now we have a 9:30 closed session. We do have a personnel item, but I think the litigation's light, so I think we can hold to the 9:30. We'll let you know. I guess we could always change it if it starts building up, but right now the 9:30 should work.
Well, the time to change it would be next week, presumably, when we publish it. So,
Yeah.
So maybe we should just tell staff to, authorize staff to make it 9 o'clock if necessary,
Right.
even though there's only, the Rules Committee does not meet next week. It will be a Rules and Lieu meeting, so we could do that. I think 9:30 is probably okay, based on what I've seen, but we have things that happen that have to come to closed session. Anything else on page 1? Page 2 or 3? Page 4 or 5?
On page 5, items 3, 5, 6, and 7, I'm going to combine into one item because we have 3 interviews, but there's only 1 applicant per position.
All right, so we have civil service, police and fire, retirement.
And federated. I don't see the need to split them into 3 separate. I think we can do them as one action. I also don't know if you want to interview since there's only 1 person per position. And the election we'll be opening the ballots on Monday for the election and counting. Because these are the ones that the employees vote on.
Well, I think we should agendize it.
Yeah, we need to agendize it, but I was going to combine them into one so we can take it as one action.
That's fine.
Mayor or City Attorney, to clarify, so it's based on the City Clerk's comments, these are people that have been chosen through an election process, and then the City Council just sort of rubber stamps it?
No, it's an independent decision of the council. So it's essentially a nomination, and the council has to agree. So the council has independent review and final say.
So I would make assumption then the interview would be mandatory?
We're going to
Typically.
we're going to have them come, and then if you guys want to ask them questions, they'll be there. And then on 3, 4, and then that one we usually do a time certain of 3 or 3:30. Because the appeals hearing board, you'll actually have up to 3 people to interview. We're still getting feedback.
Yeah, I mean, you can reject the others and say go out and do it again.
Yeah.
So it's up. So that's why it's important to keep it on the agenda.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to go back to why it's one item.
Well, 2 years ago, we combined 2 of them into one item just to streamline. Prior to that, we had separated them all out. So I just thought to...
Well, let's do the Civil Service Commission interviews as an item, and then
Okay.
the 2 retirement boards as an item.
Okay.
Since we're only going to have, we're just basically vetting the nominees for police and fire, but we're actually interviewing civil service, the group interview.
Well, civil service is not. Civil service is the elected position. This isn't the one that you appoint. This is the one that's elected by the employees. So the civil service is also an election. And
But there are 3 of them?
currently it's held by, we have 3 elections going on right now. Civil service, I know Bill Brill's the current person who holds it. And that's elected by the employees of the city.
Okay,
And then-
let's
yeah.
just do civil service is one and the other 2
Okay.
as an item, because
Okay.
retirement boards are one thing, civil service is
Got it.
completely different, and it's all going to take the same amount of time either way.
Yeah.
All depends on the number of people.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on page 4 or 5? Page 6 or 7? Anything on page 8 or 9? Page 10 or 11? Page 12 or 13? I have no written requests for additions. Mr. Wall, you want to speak on this item?
With reference to item 4.3, the Levitt Pavilions in St. James Park. This is, Councilmember Licardo's put in a lot of good detailed work on this project, but I think this is getting a little out of hand with these benefit assessment districts, especially the onus that'll be put on property owners to support this project. And this is really not addressing the issue of getting rid of the vagrants and other elements, the criminal elements out of St. James Park. And there also might be a diminution of value because of the sound that this pavilion will create to people that may not want to listen to it, but have property around the park. With reference to 5.1, the community centers, that report should also include how much money we could sell these community centers, how much money we could get for it at market rate now to help stave off the exodus of San Jose police officers, because you're going to need more money. Item 6.1, signature flight support. Sir, this is one of the star achievements of your administration. I think council and yourself, sir, did a great job at the airport staving off financial disaster with this deal. Thank you.
That concludes the public comment on this matter. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
That'd be a second.
Are we going to set a time certain at
Oh, yeah.
3 or 3:30?
I'll ask the maker of the motion.
Yes. 3 o'clock? We don't really have anything before then.
There's
Yeah.
plenty on the agenda.
Yeah, there's plenty.
Just a minute, so if you want to do it towards the beginning or towards the latter half, do you have a preference, Mayor?
That doesn't matter.
Okay.
3 o'clock?
3
Sure.
o'clock.
Fine.
Okay.
And an authorization to adjust the start time if need be.
Yes.
Okay. That's the motion. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unopposed? That's approved. We have nothing under upcoming study session agendas. Legislative update, we have nothing. On meeting schedules, we talked about releasing a date for something we're holding on December 9th.
That's correct. December 9th has no pending items, so we are free to release it if it's what the committee.
Second.
Motion is to release the December 9th date we're holding for a study session. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That's approved. Public record. Anything from the public record the committee would like to comment on?
Mayor?
Yes. Vice Mayor.
I'd like to pull item A.
Item A is a memorandum to me and the Rules Committee. Actually, we have more than one document here, I guess, right? We have
I'm
item
sorry,
1
it's
and then item A.
Yeah, item 1 and item A.
So item 1 is the city attorney's office update regarding Dairy Hill Cemetery expansion, and item A is further communication on that. So anything else we'll just pull and talk about?
Not to pull, but I think we should refer, get the right item here. Item B, refer to PRNS and note and file the rest, and then we'll discuss the other one. That was a motion.
I'd like to talk about item G. That's the request for deferral of the housing impact fee
Oh, yeah.
as well. So
Just talk about them all and then do one motion at the end?
yeah,
Okay.
I've got a lot of people who want to speak.
Take my motion back.
A lot of people, I'm not sure what everybody wants to speak on, but let's just take the testimony, we'll find out. David Wall.
Item E, this is in reference to the EIC Qualic B Incorporating meeting. I want to state that they run an exceptionally best meeting I've seen here at City Hall. Their minutes are exceptional, their documentation is without question, and the public is well served by the board. It's interesting, though, and it's a sad point, that the EIC, the Environmental Innovation Center, is not recognized as by the IRS as a nonprofit. So work has to be done to correct that. And other than that, I still say the EIC is one of the biggest white elephants the city has ever taken on. Item G that you're going to talk about, I'm been on record, I still am, I dramatically oppose any housing impact fees whatsoever. This affordable housing business is just a development scam that pays absolutely no taxes for the services that they get. And it should be taken out and done away with. So the Chamber of Commerce has done really well in this regard. Outside of that, we have all our cemetery people that are going to be lining up, so I'll leave it to them to talk for the rest of the afternoon.
Well, speaking of that, I neglected to tell you that I'm going to limit your comments to 1 minute, but you were very close. So I've got a lot of people who want to speak. We have many more cards of people who want to speak. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak and we get our work done within our schedule. So I'm going to limit comments to 1 minute. Martha O'Connell.
Is it on?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I only have 1 minute to speak for the Senior Commission. I draw your attention to a extremely detailed analysis of a client satisfaction rate for the current vendor for the senior nutrition program. The way we did this survey, we broke it down by menu item instead of just asking people what they thought of the lunch as a whole. And I can point out to you that we do not have an 87 satisfaction rate, as previously reported by other surveys. I'd also like to quickly talk about the donation box. People are being shamed and intimidated into thinking that they have to give some money. I just got a call yesterday from another woman at another center. So we're working very diligently to try to get these boxes in a confidential location protected by a screen so that people are not being ashamed because they can't afford a $3 donation.
Richard McCoy.
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking on behalf of the Senior Commission on the recommendations of our report, and we want to diverse and be able to offer vegetarian meals. That's something that's really kind of not known to a lot of the respondents. And 48% of those that responded to the survey said that they would have a vegetarian meal if one was available. Also, some of the Jewish and Muslims would also meet the vegetarian meal requirement and are asking that this be regularly displayed and not hidden on posters so people don't know about them except for the Bateman representative. Also, we would like to make sure that this meal is available to those who request it in advance, that the vegetarians there. An additional recommendation is that the surveys done, the senior centers distribute to all the centers that are also not Bateman controlled. That would include centers such as Northside, John 23rd, Eastside, to help give a overall condition and better survey results. Thank you.
Nancy Williamson.
Hi, I'm with the Senior Citizen Commission, and I would like to urge you to review the specific items on the survey. We did a very detailed report about the concerns of seniors and how they view the items on the menu, and there's many nutritional concerns, and many of seniors, of course, as you know, have nutritional limitations and needs in our community. Also, we'd like to recommend that an independent survey is conducted on a yearly basis by the Senior Citizen Commission. In the past, what they do is they allow these really small yellow cards. That's their survey. And oftentimes, it has the logo of the provider or the vendor, which the seniors are afraid to actually fill out the surveys. So we recommend that an independent organization, such as the Senior Citizen Commission, on a yearly basis conducts this survey so that we have data that is current and accurate about what the seniors view regarding a very important part of our city program, which is the Senior Nutrition Program. Thank you.
Eileen Hunter.
Hi. Thank you. Hi, my name's Eileen Hunter, and I'm a leader on the Sacred Heart Housing Action Committee. I'm also a displaced technical worker who's lived in the Bay Area since the early 80s and gone through multiple company closures and layoffs. My unemployment benefits are almost finished, and I am running out of options for work and looking at positions that will pay a much lower wage. Where my daughter and I will live is something I worry about every single day. There has already been substantial public and developer outreach on the housing impact fee in the Nexus study. The Housing Department has hosted or attended 17 meetings with developers and community stakeholders with more than 260 people in attendance. There has been a major outreach done to the development community before, after, and even during the Nexus study. During the Nexus study, the consultant held one-on-one meetings with 7 developers to make sure data in their report was accurate and represented development information specific to San Jose. We need to talk about the impact fee at the December 10th meeting, council meeting. Thank you.
Bruce Roberts.
My name is Bruce Roberts. I'm a leader in the Sacred Heart Housing Action Committee. I live at High House, which some of you are familiar with, an affordable housing facility for seniors and disabled in Willow Glen. What I have simply is a place to live that I can afford based on my income, which is disability. Living at High House has allowed me to continue to set down roots and grow as a person and be part of a vibrant community. I have an apartment where I live that is clean with electrical power, with heat, and for the most part secure for me. And you'll never know how important it is to have your own bathroom. But more importantly, it means survival. You see, I have obstructive sleep apnea, and I need a CPAP machine or I might die serious. Affordable housing guarantees and preserves my right to live. It's that simple. To give others that right, I urge you to support the highest possible impact fee. The fee that was recommended by the Housing Department is too low.
Sorry, your time is up.
That's it? All right.
Cecily Barneson.
Thank you for your service to our community. I'm Cecily Barneson, a leader with the Sacred Heart Housing Impact Committee. The Chamber letter raises issues that are not true. The governor's veto of AB 1229 is not only not a reason to delay, it reinforces the importance of moving quickly to implement new strategies to raise money for affordable housing. It is very disappointing that the building industry and the Chamber are suggesting we interpret the veto of AB 1229 as lesson. What the veto actually is Sacramento denying yet another tool for local government to create affordable housing. It is one more signal that Sacramento is not going to solve our problems for us. We need to act locally and quickly. The governor's veto ignored the fact that inclusionary policies have generated more than 30,000 new affordable homes over the past 10 years across the 170 cities and counties who had these policies in California. Arguing that an impact fee won't increase the supply of affordable housing in San Jose is like saying the housing department doesn't know how to spend money to create affordable housing. That's wrong. When they had resources, the San Jose Housing Department did a phenomenal job of working with nonprofit developers to generate affordable housing.
Wendy Ho.
Good afternoon. Wendy Ho with United Way Silicon Valley. I just want to express my concern about the letter from the Chamber of Commerce and their allied business groups. I take issue with the assertion that they have not had the opportunity to review and fully analyze the staff recommendations and Nexus study findings. The housing department has undertaken a huge effort to keep stakeholders apprised of the housing impact fee process and to solicit feedback at various points throughout the process. I have personally been impressed with their outreach efforts. As others have noted, they have held 17 public outreach meetings attended by over 260 developer and community stakeholders. They have also set up a great email system to alert interested parties whenever there was an update regarding the housing impact fee. I attended 2 community meetings and only saw other housing advocates in attendance. At the Housing Commission meeting last week, where staff presented the results of the Nexus study and the recommendations, only the Building Industry Association gave public comment on this issue. I respectfully ask that you honor those stakeholders who have been actively engaged in this process and move forward with the December 10th council meeting as planned. Please do not allow the interest of a few to hijack this
Time
process.
is up.
Thank you.
Josh Howard.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the committee. Joshua Howard with the California Apartment Association, one of the signatories to the letter that you have before you today. We want to first of all thank Housing Department staff for working on this issue so quickly and diligently. However, it is that expedience that has led to our request for this delay of only 90 days, asking for an additional 90 days for the building industry and the business community to more thoroughly analyze the Nexus study as well as the staff recommendations. We have yet to see the full staff recommendations when we are told the council meeting is in 3 weeks from yesterday, when this issue will be discussed. So we'd like the additional time to thoroughly review the staff recommendations, to thoroughly review the Nexus study and identify some of what we feel are methodological flaws in the study and some of the underlying assumptions that are contained in there. Thank you.
Pat Salcedo.
Mayor and Committee, Pat Salcedo, NAIOP Silicon Valley. I want to join the other business members that are here this afternoon asking for the 90-day delay on the housing study, the Nexus study. Anything that goes into changing the cost of housing in the city of San Jose will ultimately have an effect on the overall economic strategies of this city. We feel we need time to analyze that study. We also need to see staff's full and complete recommendations so that we can evaluate those, talk with our board members, and come back to council with full response to those recommendations. Thank you.
Anil Babar.
Good afternoon. My name is Anil Babar with the Santa Clara County Association of Realtors, and I echo the comments of the previous two speakers. One of the reasons we see such high cost of housing is the high amount of fees that are imposed on developers when they're building homes. We urge you to approve the 90-day delay so we can thoroughly review the study and the staff recommendations, and then we can move forward. Thank you.
Chris Foley.
My name is Chris Foley. I'm a business and entrepreneur here in the San Jose area for 33 years and a citizen for more than 45. I'm here to give my loud support to the expansion for Oak Hill improvement in Oak Hill Cemetery. Thank you.
Norm Mattioni.
Thank you, members of the committee. Norm Mattioni on behalf of Oak Hill. I just wanted to address the memorandum by the city attorney as well as the memorandum my law firm presented. As I read both of those, it tells the council that there is a way through the process. We're asking you to consider it from a policy standpoint, the entire council, and to let us go through the planning process. The memorandum from the city attorney identifies that initially this was potential habitat for burrowing owls, and it could have been preceded by substitute habitat or preserving this area. And so those are planning issues that need to be pursued. We have submitted a detailed biotics report to the planning department that is yet to be reviewed, and we would hope we could go through that process. Thanks.
Bart Heckman.
Mr. Mayor, members of the committee, Bart Heckman, also here on behalf of Oak Hill. I submitted the card, Mr. Mayor, only to let you know that as a co-author of the memo you received, I'm available to answer questions should they come up in your deliberation.
Carl Wisbar.
My name is Carl Wisbar. I'm here for the expansion of Oak Hill Cemetery. It's to take care of the people at time of need. And to me, Oak Hill Cemetery is San Jose from a historical point of view. Thank you.
Karen Carter.
Good afternoon. I'm Karen Carter. I'm a San Jose resident since 1956, and I am employed by the Cemetery and Funeral Bureau and office at Oak Hill. My title is Director of Community Relations for the Bay Area Dignity Providers. Through the years of 32 years with this industry and office at Oak Hill, I've seen many, many people come through the gates and the doorway entrusting their loved ones to Oak Hill's care. And they come back over and over again, not just to visit the graves, but to come and make connection with the staff that they have made friends with. And also the greater community of San Jose comes for many, many services, Memorial Day, 9/11 memorial service, the Remembrance, Tree of Remembrance candle lighting service, the Day of the Dead, where we had several thousand. This is a historical and dedicated piece of land that future generations should have opportunity to be a part of, and the expansion is really necessary. I'd like to be on the agenda.
Time is up.
Thank you.
Gene Finucci.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and committee. I'm Gene Finucci. I'm with the United Veterans Council of Santa Clara County. We speak on behalf of Oak Hill for its contributions in a historical sense, as already mentioned, but in its service to not only the veterans of the community who have had great relationships with the Oak Hill, but the future. And we think that they should be able to have this on your consideration for the agenda.
Steve Davies.
I'm Steve Davies. I'm the owner of Foothill Air Conditioning. We employ up to 20 people that work and live in San Jose, and I'm here to support Oak Hill because we do a lot of work for them, and we want to support what they want to do. Thank you.
Phil Killer.
Hello, I'm Phil Keller. My wife and I own the House Nutrition on Lincoln Avenue in Willow Glen. We live in Santa Teresa. She runs the store, and I'm a certified celebrant. Lots of people think I work at Oak Hill. I don't. I never have. But I spent a lot of time there doing services, funerals, and officiating at various events. Over the years, I've gotten to know a lot of people there, from the groundskeepers to the executives, and really, they all consider the cemetery to be a public trust. It's in their care for a little while, and they take care of it, and they pass it on to future generations. It's just not some sanctimonious thing that they mouth. They really act and believe on that. I think that if you sell them the property, city gets some cash, another parcel on the tax rolls. My understanding is that some of it will remain in its natural condition, the rest landscaped and cared for. And I know it's not for me to decide, but before you decide, please give these good folks a hearing. Oak Hill is an outstanding corporate citizen. If any of you want to know why I feel so strongly about them, I'm at your disposal.
Robert
Thanks.
Wallinger.
Thank you, committee. My name is Robert Wallinger. I'm the general manager of Oak Hill, and I'm just here with many other community leaders, local businessmen that have come out here to support Oak Hill because we're very passionate about needing to expand to keep the facility running for many years to come and serve so many people in the community. Looking back at the history of Oak Hill, there's so much history still to be made, and we want to be part of that, and we ask for your consideration. Thank you.
Chris City.
Mayor Reed and Council, I'm actually here today in favor of Oak Hill for their expansion and for you to consider it and to get it onto the agenda. My family's been in business over 55 years here in San Jose, being a provider of Oak Hill, and Oak Hill does a great job. For over 150 years, they've been serving our community, the ethnic population, all the funerals that they do a great job, and our family's in support of them.
Ken Cooper.
Thank you. I'm Ken Cooper, Assistant Fire Chief of Spring Valley, one of the fire agencies here in Santa Clara County, and I support Oak Hill with their expansion. I think we should have the children of the history that's there now be able to be buried with their loved ones. So I support the expansion of Oak Hill.
Gary Ferraro.
Thank you. I'm also in favor of the expansion of Oak Hill. My family has been in this valley over the length of the time that Oak Hill has been there, by the way. They've been there for over 150 years. My family that I've now raised, they're also here. And I'd like for them to be able to have the opportunity to be buried at Oak Hill where my parents are currently now. I know for a fact I'm also belong to the Canoas Gardens Community Association. I also am a representative for Pony Baseball, the West Zone, and they also are supporting Oak Hill also in their expansion. They've helped out numerous families that have had anything happen to them in their activities they've had throughout Pony Baseball. So we would greatly appreciate that fact and let them continue to make history, if you would, please. And please consider it. I would really appreciate it. My family would, that's been here a long time, too, would also. Thank you.
Shawnee Kleinhaus.
Good afternoon. I'm Shani Kleinhaus with Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society. And I think you've made a commitment to set the land aside for the boring owls. There is legal commitment, there is a moral commitment, and I think the commitment should be kept. So Audubon asked that the city retains the boring owl mitigation area and not sell it. And we hope that you require implementation of the permit conditions that require the maintenance of that site. And if there is any help that we can provide in that, we're happy to provide assistance in stewardship and helping the owls come back to that site. Thank you.
That concludes the comment on the public record. Obviously, there are a couple of items here that we want to talk about. Let's just start at the top here. And those are the two items related to Oak Hill Memorial Park. And having read both the items, it seems to me this property is not surplus in the true sense of the word, because it was given to the city, deeded to the city for a specific purpose. It's still fulfilling that purpose and is also providing open space for the residents of that area and maybe for the larger community as well. So I don't really see it as surplus. It appears that there are several things that we could do to create the conditions in which it might become surplus, but I don't see it as surplus today. And I don't think we should, eliminate it, sell it, do whatever we need to with it, because it is performing a function, and we got it. Without regard to how the title is, it was certainly given to us for a purpose. I think we hold it in trust for that purpose. And so I'm not inclined to say we'll do something differently with it. As much as I support Oak Hill, and I've been out there many, many times, they've done a great deal of service to the community. To take away a neighborhood amenity for that purpose or any other purpose is a very difficult decision for the council to take. So I wouldn't be in favor of moving ahead with it. Oh, we own the property for a specific reason, and it's still performing that reason. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, and I really appreciate your comments. I really appreciate the memo from the City Attorney's Office to answer all the questions that I raised a couple of weeks ago in regards to this particular property. But as the Mayor stated, this property is habitat land. It is not surplus land. Obviously, the applicant can go through the land use process and reopen the PD zoning should they decide to make this surplus land, but then they have to find another 13 acres somewhere else in exchange. But that's really up to the applicant, and that's their prerogative. But I am not inclined to support selling this land. This is habitat land, and we want to preserve it that way. I also wanted to share that when the property owners decided to purchase the homes that was offered by Summerhill Homes, I have copies of the marketing materials that were given to the potential property buyers. And in these materials, in 3 different marketing materials, it did state that this is preserved open spaces. That's one. And then the second one is the homes are backing to permanent open space and open green space. So these are the marketing materials that were sent to the potential buyers who live on Dairy Hills now. And I just don't think that it's right to turn this into surplus land, which it's not. And so I'm inclined to direct staff not to do any more work on this project. I think we receive all the answers that we need, and if the applicant decides to pursue this, that's really up to them. But I can tell this committee that this is not something that I would support.
Councilor Constant?
I think if the applicant does pursue it, one of the things I would like to see is kind of a reconciliation of the two lawyers' opinions. It's not uncommon to have opinions or letters from lawyers that say things that are vastly different, but there's some areas that are significantly different, and if we move forward at some point, I'd just like to have that addressed, but I don't think now's the time to do it.
Well, speaking of the applicant, I think we are the applicant.
Yeah,
we own the property. And so it's being processed with our permission, I guess. I'm not sure where in the process that all takes place, but we're the applicant. And so I don't see us processing an application to make a change on our property that would be inconsistent with the reason that we're holding the property. So I would suggest we refer this to staff and with a recommendation that we not take any further action on it. But ultimately, I don't think, we're not making a decision today.
No, it hasn't
just
been
in part of the
agendized.
public record, so.
Yeah, it's essentially your choices are to accept it, the proverbial note and file. You refer to staff, or you place on a future agenda, and but there's no action either required or sought.
Okay, I had one more request to speak on this item that got lost in the stack of cards, so I'm going to take that now. Scott Guthridge.
I represent the homeowners and residents of the community adjacent to Dairy Hill, and as the Vice Mayor said, when we purchased the land, we were assured that the property would remain an open grassland and protected area, and I wanted to say that the community really feels strongly about this hillside and has really come together on it. We turned in a petition of 346 signatures a couple weeks ago. And I'm just asking that you please deny the petition to change the land. Thank you.
Okay. I think I got everybody that wanted to speak. So back to what we should do. I think it sounds like we just note and file it. We're not moving it forward. We're not taking any action on it. We just note and file, assuming that we get through this. That could be part of the motion on the public record. The other one to talk about in the public record is item G regarding the letter from the San Jose Chamber of Commerce and others on the housing impact fee. And I think we have an agenda item on December 10th.
Yeah. Mayor, that has
which is not
before you.
Not in front of us today. So the time to talk about whether or not to defer it would be when we get the agenda, but there's no meeting of the Rules Committee next week, so it would have to be December 4th. And what I would like to do is have staff to be prepared to deal with it on the 4th, so we can decide whether or not it's ready to go on the council agenda. And so I have a couple of concerns and things that I think staff needs to do in the interim. First is, in light of the Supreme Court decision in the Kuntz case and the California Supreme Court decision in the Palo Alto case, it's got a different name.
Sterling Park.
Sterling Park case, which was a unanimous decision by the California Supreme Court. I think the rules have changed from what people think they are about nexus and what it takes to reach the conclusion that you have a nexus. And so I want to make sure that our lawyers have had a chance to understand the models that were used in the nexus study so that we're not going in the wrong direction based on basically the old case law, because there is a couple of models that the staff referred to in the staff report, but I don't know that anybody has looked inside those models. It appears that they assume a nexus, but I'm not sure they prove a nexus. And I think, given the fact that we've got a case on appeal right now on nexus-related issues, I want to make sure we're correct in how we apply the law in light of what the two Supreme Courts have told us, because it seems to me there's been a change in attitude, if not in the law itself. And so I think we can expect a higher level of scrutiny for the conclusions that we reached. And I don't want to put it in front of the city council until we're confident that we've met whatever that standard is, so that we don't have another effort that we go through a lot of trouble and then get litigated and lose. Let's get it right up front. And if the folks from the Chamber of Commerce or others are willing to challenge the model, fine, put it out there. There's no better way to find out if there's a weakness in it than to let people look at it. And if there is a weakness, then that's something we can fix before we move ahead with an ordinance, rather than having it go to the Court of Appeals and come back to us. So hopefully we can be ready to answer those questions on the 10th. I know that obviously our lawyers are aware of the cases. They talked about it. We've had some briefing on it, but I just want to make sure that we're comfortable that we're ready to go.
You want us to come back on the 4th, rules?
The 4th, yes. Rules Committee on the 4th, so that we can decide whether or not the 10th is the appropriate date for that to move ahead. So, anybody else? Councilor Constance?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment because I did have the opportunity to talk to some economics experts and had them look at the methodology, and they raised some serious questions that I think need to be addressed, and I'm not prepared to address them today because I know it's not on our agenda. But I think when we come back at that rules meeting, I'd like to know a little bit more about the economic background of the people who prepared the report, because there seem to be some fundamental contradictions with established economic principles. And I think from my review, it's clear that the people have experience in writing reports that a nexus exists, but I'm not sure that they've established that they have an expertise in the economic principles that they rely on, which are what feed those models that they use to get the results. And I think that's going to be very important for me to have any credibility in the report itself. I agree with you 100% on the overarching legal issues around the nexus, but I think regardless, we need to understand whose opinions are we reading and where are their expertise or not in the area of economics. I also think that in order for the council to make a real decision in this, before any fees are added or contemplating being added, we should be prepared to see a full list of all the fees that are added on housing development as it occurs in our city as well. Because I think if you look at one fee out of context, people may say that's not such a big deal. Other people may think it's a big deal, but when you see it in context of the entire fees, we would have much more affordable homes if there were no fees that keep getting added on top of them. So I think that would help inform the discussion as well.
Did city staff, housing department, have some comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kristen Clements, Division Manager. We would be happy to come back and give an update at the Rules Committee meeting on the 4th. We have reached out to the authors of the letter. We do want to understand their concerns. Our intention's always been to make sure that what we end up with as a proposal to the council is fully legally defensible and really well researched with the developers. So we spent a lot of time talking to developers, but we want to make sure that we continue that the conversations. So our director's already reached out to the authors to really understand at a detailed level what their issues may be, and we're happy to come back and give you an update. The other thing that I would add is just that the item on the 10th is simply a request to go ahead and craft an ordinance, so all of the mechanics and the details of what a program, a fee would look like, all of those details can continue to be needs to vetted with the development community, and that's always been our plan. So what we're putting forward first is requesting a go-ahead, and then the further details will take quite a bit of time to flesh out. We think at least 2, 3, 4 months. So that timeline could be very adequate in order to get questions answered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor
Thanks. I would just say that I'm not comfortable having staff spend a lot of time crafting an ordinance and all the work that goes into that if we're not sure that we have the information to make a decision and give direction on that. I think that I would hate to see, with all the demands we have for staff time throughout our organization, including our city attorney's office, to spend a lot of time crafting an ordinance and then to find out that it's not legally defensible. We shouldn't have been wasting that time. So I think we really need to get our footing done well, whether you support or not the impact fee, before we actually put a lot of work into the ordinance.
One last comment that, based on some of the things that I've seen, is a lot of the justification for the nexus conclusion is the fact that other people have reached the conclusion and done it in other cities, which is interesting. But other cities are not San Jose. Other cities don't have a big target on them like we do. And we just have to assume it will be litigated. And what they did in Mountain View or Berkeley, or it's interesting, but it doesn't provide us any protection whatsoever. So we just got to be sure, because it's San Jose and we're a big target.
We'll be prepared to come back on the 4th, so.
We agree. We appreciate the Attorney's Office support. They've been very, very helpful and involved
Good.
throughout all this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So is there any other conversation on public record?
Yeah, I just wanted to say on the issues with the senior commission, I do think that that's an important thing to refer to PRNS, and I know that since we changed the model of the senior nutrition program, we have taken a lot of input and made revisions as we move forward, and I think this is good information to inform the staff as we come into our next budget cycle and whatever we may be doing to tweak and modify the system. So I guess the overarching motion would be to note and file most, refer item B to PRNS, and item G, direction to staff to be prepared with the information that was requested for the December 4th, Rules Committee.
Okay.
Second.
We have a second. That's the motion. Anybody else on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Not opposed. That's approved. Boards, commissions, and committees, work plans. We have a PRNS Commission's annual report and work plan to consider. There's a couple of requests to speak on it. Martha O'Connell.
The Senior Commission always does an end-of-the-year report. When our work plan is submitted, you'll find it in the packet. I'd like to thank you again for leaving the Senior Commission as a standalone commission, and I think if you review what we did this year, you'd be hard to find another commission that is as active and is making as many recommendations. And we kept our promise to you. We told you our nutrition survey would be done no later than December, and it's now before you in the packet. Thank you.
David Wall.
Sir, I would like to reference the Senior Citizens Commission with Councilmember Liccardo's effort to rid the sidewalks from bicycles. Although Councilmember Liccardo is right in what he's doing, he's limited the scope. I think that it should be citywide and enforced by the police at their discretion, because the police are in the community. They see a speeding bicyclist on a sidewalk that's a threat, they should be able to issue a citation with a significant bail schedule attached. I applaud the Senior Citizens Commission for what they've done, and I would like to see everybody protected from these bicycles on sidewalks. Thank you.
That concludes public testimony on that item. Did we get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion is to approve the work plan and a report. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Not opposed. That's approved. Next item is Operation Prom Dress as a city council-sponsored event.
Second.
I have a motion to approve that. No request to speak on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Not opposed. That's approved. Item G3 is called taxi drop-off fees. A memorandum for myself, Councilmember Liccardo, and Councilmember Rocha on that item. I've got some requests to speak. I think we'll just take the public testimony first. So come on down, Ibrahim Mohammed. Ibrahim Mohammed. Dmitry Vorek. I need to get you a little closer to the microphone. We'll pick it up. Just get a little higher.
Okay, I'm sorry. I represent Rainbow Cap, and I'm the guy who got 65 citations, 250 each. Last week I was in Superior Court, and when I was getting paperwork, I asked clerk for 65 more copies, and when I look at her face, I told her that I hope the judge will have the same expression on his face. So you guys made a big mistake in 2009, and it's a good time to, fix this mistake. If you want to build a walls at San Jose Airport, good luck. But I hope you'll pay us back all money we pay in citations. Have a nice day.
Dave Logan.
Hi, good afternoon. I think you probably know by now I represent Yellow Checker Cab, and we support the memo that was put out.
Amarjit Singh.
Mr. Mayor and staff, thank you. I have repeatedly said at every meeting, at every possible place where I could make a comment about this, that no driver or no owner wants to see a drop-off fee. It's really shocking that the airport has completely ignored a comment from every driver, comment from every owner. They have ignored every airport in the U.S. Who has never done this. This is something completely unheard of, and I'm hoping, now that it's here, it's taken a while to get here. I'm probably close to $5,000 worth tickets now, just for dropping somebody off there. I don't know how this airport's, will succeed if they continue this. I'm going to continue fighting for this until this is done, and I'm hoping also that all of my citations will be dismissed. If they need revenue, they got to figure out a better way to do this. Thank you.
Lashkar Singh.
Good afternoon. My name is Lashkar Singh from Silicon Valley Cab. I'm here to support the elimination of the drop-off fees at the San Jose Airport. I personally don't believe this is the best way of revenue. It's actually turning away the customers, because most drivers are now scared to go to San Jose Airport and drop off and getting a citation. So they're giving better deals to the customers to drop off at SFO. So please get rid of the drop-off fees.
Shakur Brunei.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and the other members of the council. My name is Shakur Buni, and I'm Airport Driver Association President. I'm here to support the memo from the mayor and the other two councilors. It's good for our constituents. I live in San Jose. Most of the San Jose business people, when we tell them we charge you extra than San Francisco or Oakland, they give us a hard time, and it's going to be a big problem for us. So this is a good step to the right direction, and it encourages a lot of business people. We deal with the business people in the airport. They're going to take cabs, and they will increase the business of city of San Jose Airport. It's a good step to the right step to the city. So I'm supporting, and it's going to be good for everybody, because when the airport get more business, I don't think they need the dollar from one customer, $1.50 they charge them. So I'm supporting the memo, and please, the rest of the Rules Committee, please approve it this, and we're all behind you guys. Thank you.
Ibrahim Mohammed. I think that concludes public testimony on this. In fact, it does conclude. We have a memorandum that I authored with Councilmember Liccardo and Rocha, which I'd like to give staff a chance to talk about as how we might move this forward. whether we just need to put it on the council agenda or the staff needs some more time to figure out the legal intricacies of how we handle the situation, knowing that nothing at the airport is ever simple.
Mayor, I think we can take it in two steps, and I'll let the airport speak separately, but from our perspective, if you want to suspend enforcement at this point, we could draft a moratorium or suspension of immediate enforcement, get that on a council agenda in short order. And this would just be with respect to drop-offs at the airport and, as it says, other venues, so we take that as citywide. And then we could come back with final tweaks. I know the airport is looking at the more holistic view of the taxi, and I'll let them, the taxi issue, and maybe at that point we come back with a more comprehensive, but I'll let the airport staff address that.
Okay, so one route would be to just do a moratorium to suspend the prosecution and collection while the staff continues their work on the taxi program at the airport.
That's correct.
Right. So did airport staff have any comment on it? I know we had a date for a discussion of the taxi, and that's been postponed a bit to allow staff to finish their work. So, Ed?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the committee, the Airport Competitiveness Committee, I believe, was scheduled to take up this issue, but that's been deferred so that staff could do additional work. I'd like to ask John Aiken, our Acting Assistant Director from the airport, to report on the issue from staff.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, staff has reviewed the memo, and I wanted to give a little bit of background on where we are, and then wanted to get a little clarification on the two items. They're written very broadly, and we wanted to make sure we were going in the right direction. The drop-off fees for out-of-town taxis that we feel are the focus of the memo were modified in March of this year in an effort to help the out-of-town taxis be able to bring SJC customers to the airport from the outlying cities. The city ordinance restricts out-of-town taxis without a San Jose PD permit from dropping off or picking up passengers anywhere in the city of San Jose. Most of the out-of-town taxi companies chose not to get a permit from the PD because of the expense. A restricted permit for an out-of-town company is about $3,500. With that in mind, the airport staff recommended in March to allow out-of-town taxi companies to get an airport GT permit without getting the PD permit, so that they could do drop-offs at the airport. In an effort to maintain a level of equity with the San Jose permitted companies, the staff recommended that we do $5 drop-off fees versus the $1.50 that the permitted companies do to help make it more equitable. The couple clarifications that we need on the memo, first off, in recommendation number 1, it talks about drop-off fees in general. Our assumption based on some previous meetings is that we're talking about the drop-off fees from out-of-town taxi companies, not drop-off fees taxi-wide. On the second item, the suspension of fines and citations for drop-offs, staff actually has not issued any citations for drop-offs. We issue citations for not having a permit or not having an AVI tag, which is how we track the vehicle through the airport. There's not actually a citation that we can make for just not paying the fee because the staff on the street don't know whether you paid your bill or not. So we need some clarification what the real intent is, because there are no drop-off fee citations right now as we stand.
Well, a couple of things. First, I wouldn't be surprised that there might be some legal issues with prohibiting people from driving into our city from some other city. I don't know exactly what that might be. That just strikes me as a bit of a problem, and to drive into our city to drop somebody off. I understand the pickup. Somebody that's a licensed San Jose cab, we're essentially as a city saying they've been inspected, they get insurance, they're legit, the police department's looked at them. If they get in a cab in another city, we're not saying anything about that. So to me, there's a difference between pickups and drop-offs, and whether or not that's in the law or not, I'll let the city attorney speak to it. But so as a general rule for the city, that's interesting. But at the airport in particular, we're trying to encourage people to come to the airport. And from wherever they come from, we can't just get them from San Jose. We need to get them from all over the region. and having a requirement that the cab driver be permitted in order to drop people off at the airport, to me, it strikes me as something counter to what we're trying to do to encourage trips to the airport. So, and then that feeds into how do we pay for the taxi system, which is not currently at cost recovery. You know, we've told staff we'd like to get to cost recovery, and you're struggling with trying to figure out how to do that. So I'd like for Rick to talk a little bit about the legal issues as they may be between pickups and drop-offs and the extent of what we can do.
Right. I mean, the city historically has regulated both anybody driving in the streets of San Jose as a taxi. The city has an interest in making sure there are background checks, so you know you don't have felons or driving taxis, that there are insurance, and that the equipment is safe. Practically speaking, and I think we've run into this issue in at least one case in court. This is not an airport case. This is an off-site case. A pickup, I think we do have a legitimate interest in knowing that who's a licensed company or who is picking up San Jose residents and driving on our streets. Dropping off, if I pick up somebody in Los Gatos, I may come through 3 different cities before I get to San Jose. And how do we reasonably control that, and can we control that, to your earlier point? And I would be supportive of and that's a moratorium or suspending the enforcement against drop-offs until we can come back with a more comprehensive approach. And so I think that's an easy fix. The one area with respect to the airport that I think needs to be addressed is the council did take action that dealt with out-of-town companies, but there could be a San Jose taxi company that has cabbies that are licensed or permitted in other cities, but not San Jose, that are driving to the airport, specifically a yellow cab, and I'm not picking on yellow, but suppose that they have a Santa Clara or a Sunnyvale permitted cabbie, but because they are a San Jose-based company, they would be subject to the drop-off charges. And I think that's an area that we would need to, I think if I sense, at least, Mayor, your feeling, it's you want to encourage anybody who's a cabbie, who's permitted, who's picking somebody up in another city and coming to the airport to drop somebody off. You don't want them to be subject to a penalty for not paying a drop-off fee.
That's correct.
So I think that's what we need to work with. And staff, if you have other.
Perhaps just a couple of items to note, that the distinction between the ability to charge or regulate the drop-offs at the airport versus citywide, as I've understood from the Attorney's Office, is relevant to the extent that there can be a different regulatory structure at the airport that there can be citywide. That said, if the distinction we're referring to is really the $5 drop-off fee versus the $1.50 drop-off fee, in terms of a permitted cab and an out-of-town cab, I suspect, and John, you can confirm, that the financial impact of a suspension, a moratorium there, should be manageable for the period of time it would take us to come back with a more comprehensive look at the system. So,
if the moratorium on the drop-off fees were limited to the out-of-town taxi companies, if that's the focus, it's a minimal amount of income between now and January or February when we're able to come back with our full analysis of the program.
if it's everybody, though, are you saying that it's a more significant?
If we're talking about all drop-off fees, one, it's difficult for us to distinguish if the cab is dropping off or picking up because of our roadway structure. We don't have a double-deck road like at most airports where you pick up on one level and drop off on the other. So it's very difficult for us to determine what's happening there. So if we were to put a moratorium on all drop-off fees across the industry, it would be closer to $250,000 a year. A month of that, or 2 months of that, would be in the $50,000 range or so, something like that.
Can I ask, what if the suspension were to apply to either out-of-town cab companies or out-of-town permitted cabbies? So you could be a somebody permitted in another city dropping somebody off working for a San Jose-based company and not subject to the same thing. The point is the cab is an out-of-town cab.
Right.
And would that pose a problem?
No, I think the moratorium being on any of the out-of-town taxi cabs would be a doable thing for us to accomplish between now and when we come back with the full report.
And I think we could bring that back by December 10th so we get that thing done by the end of the year.
So I don't understand your operations out there, although I've had enough hearings, you'd think I would. So how do we know to charge a San Jose licensed taxi that's not permitted at the airport, but is elsewhere, permitted to be elsewhere in the city? How do we know they're dropping somebody off in order to charge the $1.50?
We don't. That's normally where the enforcement happens. If they're not permitted with the airport, they won't have the AVI tag, the vehicle inventory tag, so we won't be able to find them in the system. That's when our staff go out and do the enforcement of, here's an admin site because you don't have a permit, we can't track you. So currently, someone without a tag could 90% of the time get away with it, and 10% of the time when we're out there catching them, they would get a citation for that. We have to have the tag on the vehicle to actually track it through the computer system to see that they came to the airport and performed a function.
So if they have a tag, we know to charge them $1.50.
Or $5, whether they're an out-of-town taxi or a permitted San Jose taxi. We can tell from the tag which category they fall into and then would bill them appropriately.
All right, Councilor Oliverio.
So if you have a private town car or a ride-sharing method of getting to the airport, you pay or don't pay, or?
If it's the ride share that are now becoming more of a trend, those do not pay at current. And a town car or a limo service would be charged that also because the limos or town cars would have permits with them also.
Right, but as far as enforcement, an unregistered town car, you would guess that it might not be, but you don't know. And then clearly a regular car might be, you can't really distinguish whether they're friends or they've gotten together through a web-based application or anything like that.
That's correct. It's harder, unless we see the rear bumper with a PUC number on it, it's hard for us to determine whether it's just a black town car or a rogue limo dropping off.
Thank you.
So if we were just to eliminate drop-off fees altogether, we have a revenue loss, which
That's
means
correct.
then we'd have to raise the fees for pickup
That's correct.
or eat the difference.
Or some other mechanism, and that's what staff is hoping to come back in January or February with a fee structure that is less intensive for staff to make all these bills for $1.50. Obviously, that doesn't make us a lot of money making all these invoices. So we're looking at a system that can be more streamlined and spread the costs evenly across the industry. So we're trying to build a system that promotes the drop-offs, promotes bringing people to the airport, but we still achieve cost recovery spread across the industry more equitable. But dialing that in seems simple, in a discussion like this, but there's actually quite a bit to it. So we figure by the end of January, so we'll be able to have an equitable split of the fees required to maintain cost recovery.
Well, since we're going to be getting that back, I think the city attorney's suggestion of doing a moratorium on the enforcement until we sort that out is probably a reasonable place to go, and that'll allow us to assess the financial issues with any more permanent changes. Anything else, Vice Mayor?
Just a question. I'm not sure if you answered this. I heard the $250,000, but my question is, how much do we actually get from the citations, from the fees from the citations that on an annual basis?
The citations from taxis as a whole during last fiscal year was in the range of $2,000 to $3,000. This year's so far has been a little higher. As you heard from some of the people speaking, there's been more citations for operating without a permit. And so there's been more permits issued in the first several months of this fiscal year than there were last year based on more repeat violations.
And as a bit of a trivia note, I believe those citations go to the general fund, not to the airport enterprise.
That's correct.
And did you just say $2,000 or $3,000?
For taxis, there's
Yeah.
been more for admin sites as a whole,
Right.
but for the taxi industry, Oh, 2,000 for out-of-town cabs, sorry, and 20,000 for the industry as a whole in last fiscal year.
Okay, Councilor Constant.
I would just say that in the entire time I've been here, all we've done is make taxis more complex. And I really don't understand the complexity of it. It really seems to be such a simple process. I need a ride, I get a ride, I pay my bill. And I talk to some of my colleagues in other cities, and they don't go through the drama we go through. I really would like us take this immediate action, and we need to figure out a way to streamline this and get rid of the bureaucratic stuff. It just seems we have such a convoluted system, and we have the new technologies, which we've discussed here before ad nauseum, that come in and don't have to go through any of the bureaucratic red tape. And I know it's a cluster, but I think it's something we're going to have to deal with a little bit more expansively and holistically and fix this thing. Otherwise, we're just going to keep having these meetings every quarter or every 6 months for the next problem of the day with taxis.
So in terms of our action today, we probably should refer item 1 to the staff to include in their work that they're currently doing on the taxi operations, and recommend that we put item 2, some sort of a moratorium, I think is what City Attorney referred to, on the council agenda whenever the City Attorney can get it there.
Yeah, I'd like to get it, shoot for the 10th, and I can confirm that on the 4th, but the idea would be, it may need a sunshine waiver, but get a first and second reading before the end of the year to have it in place.
Okay, so if it's okay, I'll make a motion then to refer number 1 to the ongoing work that's happening by staff, direct the city attorney on number 2 to prepare this moratorium or suspension of the collection of fines, and return to city council as soon as possible so we can have the first and second reading by the end of the year. And can I do a sunshine waiver at the same time, since we know it's coming? Provide notice now that it's happening, and a sunshine waiver so it can just be put on the agenda since we have a rules in lieu next week.
Second.
I'm sorry, if I could ask for clarification, is this for all cabs or simply the unpermitted, non-airport permitted cabs?
I think I'd like to have the city attorney
I think we're
work it
looking
out.
citywide.
Okay. All cabs.
For the drop-off.
Just drop off.
Question.
Anything else, Councilor Oliverio?
Question, City Attorney. So on these types of things, if you wanted to make it urgency, it needs to be agendized as urgency, or that doesn't apply to the repeal. It only applies when you want to propose.
Yeah,
something.
I need to look at the effect of a suspension of an ordinance and the timing, and we'll have that information back. But the idea is to get this done. When you want to suspend enforcement, you want to do it as quickly as possible. So,
Assuming that's what everyone wants to do.
yeah, yeah. And I just did my own 2 cents. I mean, I think this isn't unique to San Jose, and I know it should be easier. But yeah, I was telling the mayor the other day, or I was in L.A. and I took a cab from West Hollywood, and the guy had a permit in Beverly Hills and West Hollywood, but not Los Angeles, and I kept asking him the questions, and he almost kicked me out of his cab because he didn't want to go into L.A. with me. So it's like, don't ask those questions.
And then one more question, Mayor. And then airport, you're going to come back with some more of a comprehensive thing, but do you see broaching the subject of just tackling this idea completely different, where that the state really manages the backgrounding of whoever's driving, whether it's a taxi or their own car, and then we're less involved?
Our plan right now is to come back to the Competitiveness Committee with a couple different options on both the structure of the monster of this program itself and the fee structure, to give you options to simplify both and independent. So we can choose a fee structure that's simpler and keep the current model of regulation and so forth, or to actually even choose a more streamlined regulation model also. So our plan is to bring it back in 2 areas so that we can present the pros and cons of streamlining either or both, and allow the Competitiveness Committee and then the council to give direction from there.
Thank you for the answer. And I also just realized that that question I posed to you should have been to also the Director of Transportation, right? Because
That's correct, and the PD.
And,
It's a group.
okay, so that's really a broader question for them, but I'm not going to sack them into this discussion.
Okay, we have a motion on the motion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Not opposed. That's what we'll do. Item number G4 is a request from Councilmember Calra to the San Jose Police Department gang crime statistics classification to agendize an item for council agenda on that topic. We have Chief Garcia with us, and I presume Councilmember Calra would like to speak to his memo.
Thank you, Mayor. And I appreciate the committee taking this up right now. I put forward a memo that certainly in part was in response to what was being discussed in the media and not amongst us regarding police data and gang statistics and what have you, gang crimes and data. But as you can see, the memorandum actually goes into further detail as to what my request would be, and that includes us doing a review of not just gang crime statistics, but a calendar year update of year-to-year comparisons that we oftentimes get an opportunity to get a report from the police department during the budget process in May, and oftentimes it's after not only the mayor and city manager put forward their proposed budget, but the council has put forward most of their budget documents, and once in a while there's a response, a last-minute budget document responding to one item or the other that happens to deal with an issue of the moment, rather than taking a long view of the entire year, particularly as we compare it year over year. I do want to thank Chief Escobar for being upfront and responding to some of the concerns of the media very frankly, and I certainly commend him for that. The reality is that as the person in charge, whether he likes it or not, he did the right thing, I think, by at least responding to some of the concerns and took responsibility, I think, in a very commendable manner. I do, however, feel that there are some questions regarding the strategies that we've employed over the course of this year, especially since we all know we're short, we have scarce resources and we're short in terms of personnel. So there have been some, I think, creative strategies that the police department has put forward to try to deal particularly with gang crime. And I think it's helpful for us to get an update as to where we are, but also, and I appreciate Assistant Chief Garcia being here, also the reasoning as to the changes that were made and the retroactivity of some of those changes and how that helps us going forward. One of the concerns I have is how we can compare to past years if we kind of midstream, especially as we employ a new strategy to deal with gang crime, if we change some of the criteria for any of the categories of gang crime. I believe the Chief made some comments to that regard, both in terms of through the response not just to the media but to us in terms of emails and what have you. And so I'd ask if the assistant, through the mayor, if the assistant chief would like to, before the committee at least, respond to any of the questions that have been raised and any thoughts that he might have in terms of the police department's capacity to respond to some of the other requests in the memo in terms of doing an update as to where we are in terms of crime throughout the city by district, as well as our continued approach to gang crime.
Councilor Constant.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, for letting me jump in here. This is fairly similar to something we recently went through in the fire department, where we had statistical changes and then there it was in relation to response times. And when we experienced that, we used the established committee process and had it discussed thoroughly at the Public Safety Committee. And the reason we did that is because both the police department and the fire department regularly report their statistics and their response times and different things to the committee. We have a standing item on the Public Safety Committee, which the Vice Mayor, I, and PIERLUIGI sit on.
Councilmember Chu.
And Councilmember Chu. And we have gone through these type issues in a fairly systematic way, and we meet with the lieutenant on a regular basis to go over other statistical things, like with the burglaries when they were up. So I think that I appreciate the invitation to have a little bit of a discussion here. I really think it should go to the Public Safety Committee and have a chance for us to have that thoughtful discussion, because my colleagues on the committee here could probably chime in. I really think that the way we went through it with the fire chief and their reporting to understand the mechanics really helped prepare us have a more complete package going to the council. So that would be my recommendation, and I'll make that motion in a bit after I hear from my colleagues.
Well, let me just add that we've had a lot of methodology changes over the years since I've been on the council and mayor, and I don't see anything wrong with using an asterisk. It's good enough for baseball. When they went to the longer season, they had to put asterisks against all of the records that was done in the shorter season, the longer season. So everybody understands what the asterisk means, and I think that's okay.
When you first said asterisk, I thought you were referring to the performance-enhancing drug asterisk as opposed to...
That was another area. There is that other reason for asterisks. But the methodology changes on this stuff on a regular basis. We've seen it not just in police and fire statistics, but in other areas as well. And you can't go back and restate everything that you've always done in the past. It's put an asterisk if it's important. You can look it up and figure it out. So I don't think there's any problem with changing methodologies. It happens from time to time. Just put an asterisk on it and move ahead. But I do think the Public Safety Committee, they regularly talk about the statistics. We get those reports, and anybody who wants to track it can. So that's probably the place to take up all things statistics with regard to the police departments. I would support the council members' direction to do that. But I'm also reluctant to generate new requirements for statistics. Maybe that would be something the committee would want to do, but I don't want to give direction to, okay, here's another set of statistics that we want, because we're already asking for a lot. And maybe the rule ought to be, if you ask for a new version, you have to drop one of the old versions off the list, because there's only so many people in the department available to do that. And that is another thing that I think the committee should do, is look at the data, and if stuff is no longer relevant to the question, say, okay, stop doing that, and let's focus in a different way. That's all great stuff for committee discussions, I think. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. And I completely concur with Councilmember Constant about moving this to the Public Safety Committee. I think it's the right venue for us to hear this item. On a monthly basis, we hear the monthly crime report from the police department. And I don't have a problem with using different methodologies. I think perhaps maybe a brief explanations of the methodologies that was used to report crime statistic would be welcome, but that's something that obviously the committee would ask of the police department, and we have an opportunity to discuss that when this issue comes to our committee.
Chief, as long as you're here. Add anything?
You don't have to talk.
You're not required to. You may remain silent. What you do will probably be used against you.
I will say one thing. I will say thank you, Mayor, and committee for this opportunity. But I did want to say one thing and clear up one issue with regards to the way the memo was. And in reviewing the memo in the second paragraph, it says that, however, given the change in definition of how some incidents are categorized as gang crimes, there's a level of uncertainty of the reliability of using the data by way of comparison to past years. And the only thing I want to say with regards, and I don't disagree with taking this to public safety, but we're talking about one specific area, and that specific area is gang-related homicide. There are other specific areas that we've been using the same methodology for years, and gang-related homicides make a very small percentage of the overall violent gang incidents. And so with that, that's all I want to say.
Okay, well, I want to thank the department for the fact that we have very low homicide rates, and the work we do, we're a big city, we have low homicide rates, not nearly low enough, and they're obviously up the last couple of years from previous years. But the fact that you have very small numbers, we're talking plus or minus 40 in a city of 1 million, you get fluctuations. And in statistics, you get these spikes up, you get the spikes down. You don't always know what causes them. In fact, you usually don't. But when you're dealing with really small numbers in these pools, things do move around. And as I've told the media, whether the gang homicides is 14 or 8 or 12 or 10 doesn't change our approach to what we're doing. We don't say, okay, it's only 8, so it's great, we have nothing left to do, because obviously the work continues on, as we've seen year after year at the gang task force. Whether the rates move in one direction or another, the methodology that we bring to it as an organization is good. It's proven, it works, and usually we just need a few more resources to apply to it and do that. So the department has done an excellent job, and we appreciate the fact we've got a low homicide rate. We'd like to get it lower. Councilmember Colora.
Thank you, Mayor. And just before the vote, if I can comment on some of the comments made. First of all, I do understand that there may have been one category of crime in which the criteria may have been changed, but it's a pretty significant criteria, especially given the fact that it gets not just media attention, more simply public attention. And that is evidenced by the fact that the number was so widely hailed. It wasn't the other numbers, it was the homicide number that got the most attention with the drop due to the change in definition. And so it is relevant, and I think data is critically relevant, and I don't agree with the sentiment that we don't change what we do based upon what the data is. In fact, we do change what we do, and we in fact, the way that we've approached gang crime has certainly changed over the years depending on what our resources is and depending on what the data is. Additionally, I understand how things may have been done in the past or may normally be done, but I would say that based upon the different data used for fire response times, I never received a single email from any of my constituents or phone call based upon discrepancies or anomalies of fire response time. Maybe generally just fire services, but not fire response times. But I will tell you that I get an email pretty much every day, if not more than one, regarding the increase in crime in the neighborhoods, regarding the increase in gang crime, regarding the increase in graffiti. Crime is something that is, as we all know, is something that is creating an impact in all of our neighborhoods, and the increase of crime, the steady increase, for a number of reasons. And one of those factors is the fact that it's a challenge for our police department with a limited number of officers to be able to respond in the way that we used to in the past. And so it's absolutely relevant for all council members, for the entire council, not just one district or what have you, to be able to understand what the data is and to respond to it. The data that's being requested I don't think is unusual. I don't think the categories are unusual. Those are categories that, in my understanding, they're categories and those are data points that are already collected by the police department. They report out on data similar to this every year anyway, and I think it's important for us as council members to be able to understand the effects of the policy changes, not just recent policy changes or where we're going to be going into the future, particularly before we get to budget season, not in the midst of budget season where a lot of those budget requests can be very much politicized. And so I respect the fact that things, maybe statistics have ordinarily been taken to committee in the past. This issue is important enough for the entire city that I think the entire city council should be able to weigh in on this and get the reports. And I understand when public safety reports go to the council, every council member has an opportunity to ask questions, but I think this is an important enough issue, not just gang crime, but crime in general throughout the city, within every district. And I do think that there is relevance to ask the question, even if there are methodology changes. I've said it publicly, I'll say it again here. I give complete respect to the police department to be able to make those changes as they see fit. However, it doesn't mean I can't ask questions as to why, and it also doesn't mean that we can't ask questions as to why some of the data or some of those changes may be applied retroactively. And so, at least in the media, the police chief indicated that he's going to stop using some of that data. And so if that's the case, then if there was a reasoning for the change in methodology, why would he then stop using it? And so the question, these are just questions I think all of us should have the opportunity to ask questions of, not just the committee. And I think it's important enough, and the issue of crime and the issues with dealing with crime at the neighborhood level are important enough for all of us that we should be dealing with this as a city council issue, not as a committee issue.
Mr. Wall, you want to speak on this?
As I say, Mr. Mayor, I agree with Councilmember Colora and the importance of the issue. I agree that it's important for discussion, and I agree it is incredibly more important than talking about vending machines, banning soda, foreign policy, or federal issues that this council takes up numerous times in debate. let's have a pertinent discussion on core services, but let's not bring things to council that have nothing to do with the city.
Well, I'm not bringing that today, so I don't know why you're bringing up something that's not before.
From
you
time to
now.
time, they come all the time, and I'd prefer that we stay focused discussion on law enforcement and not weave into other areas that aren't city government.
Okay, let me get Mr. Wall to get his comments on.
I like what the police department does, considering that they're not paid very well. One of the statistics that should be thought about is it's always reported as police districts, and that's confusing unless you know exactly what police district you're in versus council district with reference to the increase in crime where it may happen. Also, there's no statistics kept on gang members with reference to immigration status. I've been a long supporter. The police pick these illegals up that are in gangs causing problems. You have an ability to get rid of these people permanently, as well as asset seizures. We haven't really talked about that either. Houses, cars, bank accounts really make it hurt to be a gang member in this town with reference to our laws, and to knock out these repeat offenders as fast as you can do it. And immigration would be a great deterrence. It would send a chilling message throughout these gang communities that not only the gang member, but the entire family, if they're proven to be illegal, it's hasta la vista.
So that concludes public testimony. Councilmember Constant.
Thanks, Mayor. I completely understand your perspective, Ash, and quite frankly, I get frustrated a lot of times when issues I want to talk about go through committee first, but I think that's the appropriate thing to do, and that's why we have committees that do the work that they do. There's a lot of important issues, and different issues are more important at different times, but I really think this is appropriate to go to the Public Safety Committee first, and we can have the discussion and put together a referral to the council, and if the council wants to take it up more in depth, then we will. And perhaps the committee may, through the discussion, decide that there are some issues that we really want the whole council to have a bigger discussion on. So my motion would be to refer all of this to the Public Safety Committee. Let's see. I think it would probably be, I think we have room perhaps on the December agenda, but giving flexibility for either December or January, depending on the workload of the committee.
Okay, motion is referred to Public Safety Committee. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed? That's what we'll do. Item G5 is a request from Vice Mayor Nguyen to direct staff to explore options of reopening Office of Aging, refer those options to the annual budget process. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Briefly, just in the past year or so, probably more than that, but we've actually paid more attention the past year because we have a lot of elders that actually wrote to the office, talked to us when we're out in the community talking about the increase of elderly abuse, whether it's financial fraud, physical, sexual, emotional abuse, or neglect. These are some of the things that our elders are experiencing. And so about 5 years ago, we used to have the Office on Aging with the City of San Jose, but it was dismantled or eliminated because of budget constraints. And I'm hoping that at some point the staff would explore the options of perhaps bringing this office back to provide the needs for or the services for the needs of our elders in the community. And I would hope that staff would return to the council with proposed options during the annual budget process. So that's the recommendations in my memo, and I would make that motion.
Okay.
But I'll just make, I'll second it for purposes of discussion, and not because I disagree with you, because you may remember this was something that I was really engaged in when we were talking about the elimination of this office. And I know we have MBAs particularly directed at this exact issue, so I think we have some staff work. I do think, though, that if we start opening the door to send staff on a whole bunch of work preparing for next year's budget before the first budget message, we're going to be inundated with budget requests over the next couple of months. And I just think that we really should restrain that. I think it's good to let staff know that we're interested and maybe pull out those old MBAs, but I think that's what the March budget message is about to give that bigger direction. So that's where I am on it. I just don't want to see us having 27 memos on budget coming through the council in the next month or so.
Well, I don't anticipate that this one would come through the council in the next month or so. The way I see it playing out is a request to get the stuff together so that we're prepared to do something in the budget process. Because I agree with you, we don't want to, we're not starting the budget process. We have that budget process, and staff doesn't need to do a whole bunch of work before the budget process. But
I agree, but I think that at the next Rules Committee, we'll have another one saying, staff be prepared to discuss this at the budget process. Staff be prepared to, and before you know it, they're going to have a list of, several dozen things. And I think that's the whole purpose of us going through our neighborhood priority setting session, giving the mayor's budget message, having the council discussion, asking the questions during the budget study sessions to get the information on this. And I'm just worried about all of a sudden us having a whole bunch of these general directions to start getting ready and start looking at it. And we've never done that in the budget session before. And because I can tell you, I could probably pump out 10 of these myself, asking staff to start getting prepared. But I just don't think we should start changing our budget process.
Mayor, just briefly.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. And to a certain extent, I do agree with Councilmember Constant. I mean, I think that there's a time when we can, put in our MBA and propose the issues that we care about through a budget document. But the reason why I brought this up is because I really wanted to raise this issue, the issues of elderly abuse. And if anything, I just wanted to bring this to light that this is something that the city cares about, and it's something that I hope that this council will take a look at, especially during the annual budget process. So it's just to raise awareness that we do listen and we do understand what's going on out there, and we want to take actions. And if our budget allows, we would like to consider perhaps opening this office again.
I'd like for staff to have a comment or two about the budget process and how much work this item or any others like it that may come if we entertain this one, as Councilmember Constant has said, in terms of the staff work and the processing that might be necessary with this early request.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the committee. I think we could take a relatively, I'll say, low-key approach and factor this in the development with the departments and how they bring items forward. That said, I do believe this is a somewhat different scope from our prior Office of Aging. So, Suzanne, are you prepared to be able to speak to this? And if that's the case, if this is a somewhat different scope from what we've had previously, then it could be a little more involved. So could you try to contrast what's described here from the prior office focus?
Again, Suzanne Wolf, Deputy Director in Parks and Recreation. Previously in the Office on Aging, we did a lot of information and referrals, and so now we do that more collaboratively with the county and are looking more creatively with the 211 system and multiple languages there, and then also how we do additional staff training to be more sensitive to both training our staff and to helping our older populations as they come in with various requests. So we still do INR. It's just done through the hub model as opposed to through the Office on Aging. And I would say it's not as comprehensive as it was before, but it is something with 211 that we didn't have before that we have now, that we can help continue to move that collaboration forward.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor? It almost sounds, quite frankly, that we might just as well address this through an info memo back that reports out on where we are on this particular service, and that could form a foundation just for basic information, and have staff report back, and to the extent that that then informs whether it be the March budget message or what have you as a follow-on council action, then we could take the council direction at that time.
Councilmember Oliverio.
So when we eliminated the program or the office, what have you, was it sort of the spectrum that this overlapped with county responsibilities?
I'll need some background from staff in terms of the context.
Because there are things that sound very good. I mean, no one wants to say, I mean, God, politically incorrect, like, oh, I don't want to support an office of on aging or this and that. But the reality is if you have other levels of government, and like we're not the school district, right? But we all want to do things for schools, but the fact is we're the city, we do sewers, we do libraries, we do police. And if it's part of the reasoning when we dropped the office, was it because it's really the county's realm of social programs and that type of thing? I guess I'm looking at staff to answer that question because I don't remember the details on why it got pulled back.
So I could take a stab at it because I was part of the discussions and both in my role with the liaison to the senior commission and also all the discussions we had around senior nutrition. It kind of all blended together. And really it was, we were just trying to figure out how we could provide the basic services, and we just didn't have enough money to spread around. And I think there's no argument that the Office on Aging provided a good resource for our community, but over the years it got whittled down to a position that just didn't have the bandwidth to provide the level of service that was meaningful to our seniors. And it was not that anyone wanted to see it go, but it was a decision, do we want to have a functional office that could really provide what's needed or not, and shift those resources to other areas like the senior nutrition or others where you could provide a more functional service. And I know we have some folks from the senior commission, they'll probably give their 2 or 3 cents as well, but that's my recollection.
And then Mayor, and then really Ed, if whether it's this request for this or another request that comes in from another memo for something else, like we should have a program monitoring the vending machine or monitoring, what type of sodas City Hall employees drink, or what's our a new committee on foreign policy to discuss what foreign policy issues the city should take up. In reality, aren't you just allocating a number of bodies to that? And so each proposal is going to be 2 to 3 bodies, and it's going to cost $600,000 a year, $1.2 million base, and those are just going to be, the council will choose between that or hiring more code enforcement inspectors or hiring more librarians or this and that, and those are just choices.
To a certain extent, that's bottom line.
And then you get down to what would the realm of the responsibility be of the newly created department or bringing back one that existed before.
And to the extent that services can be integrated with something else that either we're doing or a partner agency is doing.
Got it.
So I'm going to go back to Ed and your suggestion, I guess, is that maybe you could just respond to this with an info memo that would explain what we're doing now versus compared to what we used to do. So we'd have the policy background that would then inform the March budget message.
Yes.
Is what you're saying?
Yes. Be happy to do that.
I have some people who want to speak. Let's do that. Running short on time, so I'm going to limit comments to a minute. Richard McCoy.
Thank you, Mayor. I must say I agree with the Vice Mayor's proposal here, but I also understand Council Members Constant's position that everything that comes up may have make its way for a vote and be in office. But I think the seniors need this. And my only request that if it goes forward, that it be put in a location that's accessible by seniors. In other words, along the light rail route or something like that. And from what I understand, there's a lot of space here in City Hall. I mean, after all, you gave a lot of it to the patent office, so it ought to be a little space left for some seniors and the Office of Aging. Thank you.
Martha O'Connell.
I am a senior, but I'm a fiscal conservative. I really don't think we need this. This is a duplication of services. We have the county's adult protective services. We have 211. We have senior centers where we could be bringing in folks to speak to these issues. And the Office on Aging, and in its final years, was a travesty. The second floor was a bunch of storage rooms. I said in the Office on Aging one day, you know how many people came in? 0. A friend of mine set for the next 2 days. Nobody came there. So just putting the word senior in front of something doesn't mean you should throw money at it.
Richard Calhoun.
My concern with reopening up the Office of Aging, it will do nothing to address elder abuse. There are numerous cases that are well documented that I've already presented. Doing additional outreach and additional education to get more cases that you're going to do nothing with does nobody any good. What I suggest is instead of treating elder abuse as a civil matter that this PD currently does, treat it as a criminal matter. The Penal Code 368 makes it a criminal matter. This police department currently treats it as a civil matter. The problem with a civil matter is only the elder has legal standing until the elder dies. Then finally the family can litigate. My mother-in-law finally died on August 17th. I now can litigate because nobody investigated the abuse that I complained about for 3 years. Make the police department do their job and criminally prosecute elder abusers. It's that simple.
David Wall?
With the last two speakers, I'm concerned about the cost more than anything else. And with reference to elderly abuse, a case could be made by the senior nutrition program. Thank you.
Marie Hayter?
Okay. The Health Trust and the city have funded a group called the Senior Peer Advocates, an acronym SPA, in an attempt to fill in for some of the lost services to seniors. The SPA volunteers are to help guide people through the agencies on all levels so that they can find the services from the agencies. But in the course of that, we have speakers who come monthly to help update us. What we've found is that for low-income housing, there isn't any. All the waiting lists are closed. For transportation, the gas cards, we toured outreach, and the gas cards and bus passes for the elderly people were given out to the people in the very beginning. So even though they have 500 applicants coming in, still coming in, there are none available. Those that have them can renew them. Those were not given out in an equitable way. The senior centers and agencies that knew those were coming available, they had their people apply for them. The others
Your
did
time
not
is
know.
up. That concludes public testimony on this item. Do you have something to add, Councilor?
Oh, just going to ask the Vice Mayor if she'd modify her motion to,
Have staff provide an information memo, just sort of
Then I
letting
can
us know
support
what are some of the duplicative services between what we're doing and the county and some of the other agencies. I would be fine with that.
sounds good. I'll keep my second then.
Okay.
Mayor? And Mr. Calhoun has come to the city council and rules, I think, before and has talked on these topics. And Rick, elder abuse and whether it's prosecuted criminally or civilly, is this sort of state of California district attorney county things, or is this really city of San Jose? I want to make sure he's being able to go to the right area.
It's a combination of, there are social service agencies at the county, but it's police and district attorney, I think, at the end of the day. That they work hand in hand on those issues.
But
So to the extent there's an investigation, it's generally police, DA gets involved independently and it decides whether or not to prosecute.
So the police arrest, the district attorney chooses how to prosecute.
Right.
And is that the DA's discretion then, whether it's criminal or civil?
Yeah, the DA decides whether to prosecute criminally. The district attorney's job is just to do that, independent.
So then, based on the conversations I'm hearing, that energy should be focused on the district attorney?
Yes.
Well, actually, I'd like to jump in there because we do have internal department policies in our police department on how and when they investigate. And they sometimes have ceilings I guess you'd call it a ceiling that must be hit before it warrants an investigation. Sometimes that they will, depending on the circumstances, just say, no, this is a civil matter, just as the gentleman explained, and we've run into that with some of our nonprofit agencies as well. The district attorney has a different set of guidelines, one set of guidelines that they use for cases that they're going to evaluate whether they're going to prosecute or not, and then they have another set of evaluation that they use whether they're going to do their investigation through their criminal investigators. So I think there are some things that we could look at to see where those policies are or are not in our department, and that might be something that we could just have the city manager follow up on as well. But
This is part of this review.
yeah, I think that would be important.
Well, there's another wrinkle to that is it doesn't do us any good to arrest somebody if the district attorney's not going to prosecute them. Right. And because their guidelines are important in terms of what our officers will do with their time and their resources. We'll have a discussion someday soon about medical marijuana. And what the district attorney thinks and what the U.S. attorney thinks is really important in terms of our ability to enforce the law on a criminal basis. So I think if we can make some inquiry and maybe include that in the info memo would be a good thing to do. Anything else on that? Did we vote on that?
Nope.
Okay, motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not opposed, that's approved. Last item, I believe, is a request to amend the Neighborhood Services and Education Work Plan to add a verbal update on the Measure P softball complex process. That's December 12th meeting. So we find out what's happening with the county, et cetera, I guess.
I believe, Mayor, members of the committee, there already is a bond program update on that same meeting agenda, so the softball complex would normally be a part of that report.
Okay, and we just include that then, no reason for extra referral. The same people will be there to do it?
That's correct.
Okay. Open forum. David Wall.
Sir, have you seen the sheet that's hopefully given to you? This is the reason why we're losing police recruits and police officers. This is a survey of different agencies and what they pay. If you look at San Jose's police officer, their net pay, that annual pay is $75,814.44. Go up to Santa Clara. So if you're a police recruit and a position in Santa Clara opens, you'd be a fool to turn down basically a $39,000 increase in pay. And also look at Santa Clara. They're paying 12% retirement, while San Jose police officers are paying 22%. So if these figures are true and accurate, and I believe they are because I've shown them to police officers and they agree, this is the real reason. You are going to do nothing but become a training facility and do all the background check for all these other agencies who pay money.
Your time is up. Richard McMurtry.
Hello, my name is Richard McMurtry. I'm with the Santa Clara County Creeks Coalition, whose mission is to restore our local streams to be living streams full of the fish and birds and plants for the sake of a healthy ecology and the enjoyment of everyone that lives here. It's been 10 years now since the city's Singleton Road crossing of Coyote Creek was identified as the major barrier to steelhead fish migration to the upper watershed. On Friday, I will be submitting an application to try to secure over $1 million of grant funding to assist the city in removing this barrier to fish migration. At a very productive and positive meeting graciously hosted by Lou Moa this morning, City Parks Department submitted a letter supporting the submission of this grant application. The Water District staff that was there said the letter was good and that satisfied one of the criteria for the minimum criteria for a grant, but said that it didn't satisfy the local match, and so the application would be rejected without scoring. I have submitted an email request to Lou and to Paul Pereira showing how a council member could take action in this last hours to save this grant opportunity for the city, and I hope that's something that will be considered. I hope you'll add that to your button collection. We're working hard to keep the creek clean and get funds for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to see if staff had any comments on the creek issue.
Eve Zudi, Parks and Recreation Department. As Mr. McMurtry said, we had a positive meeting this morning. We have been aware of the Singleton crossing issue for a number of years and have been looking at grant funding to solve this issue. I think where we differ in our opinions is we look at the creek channel as a complex location. There's endangered species issues, there's permitting issues with a lot of regulatory agencies, and we're adjacent to the Singleton landfill. So any exercise that we take on in that creek needs to be taken with a lot of good data collection and careful study. And so we propose a more cautious approach to do a full study that looks at the biotics, the engineering, and all the other issues that can help guide us in figuring out how much funding we need to design and construct a project in the future.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Before we leave public record, the Vice Mayor referred to some documents dealing with the Oak Hill Cemetery, and can we get those into the public record for the next packet?
Yes, absolutely, Mayor. I have in my hands here just the marketing materials from Summer Hill Homes that I like to submit to the city clerks for the public record, as part of the public record.
And next week, the next
yeah.
next committee packet, just so they're part of that. I think we're done. Anybody tell me otherwise? No? Okay, we're adjourned.